Greg Kelly Show.
Yeah, let's do it, because you may have missed it. I think this was it was this morning. This Caroline Leavitt, who used to be MAGA Inc., now she's the Trump campaign spokesperson. She is fantastic. I believe she's from New Hampshire. Met her a few times. Very, very smart, eloquent, powerful, and just on top of everything. So, going into this debate, it's okay to point out, hey, one of the moderators has a reputation of being, actually both of the moderators have a reputation of being rather, shall we say, anti-Trump. All right, so it just comes up, all right? And the reaction is beyond. All right, so Caroline Leavitt is the guest, and her name is Casey Hunt. Casey Hunt. That's a very millennial-ish kind of first name, Casey, right? It's cute, but anyway, let's hear it.
To all corners of this country. That's why he was in Detroit, Michigan last week. He was in Philadelphia for a big rally on Saturday night. And that's why President Trump is knowingly going into a hostile environment on this very network, on CNN, with debate moderators who have made their opinions about him very well known over the past 8 years and their biased coverage of him. So President Trump is willing to bring his message to every corner of this country, to voters, to ensure that he wins this election in November. He looks forward to doing that. And I know the American public look forward to hearing from him.
So I'll just say my colleagues, Jake Tapper and Dana Bash, have acquitted themselves as professionals as they have covered campaigns and interviewed candidates from all sides of the aisle. I'll also say that if you talk to analysts of debates previous, that if you're attacking the moderators, you're usually losing. So I really want to focus in on what these two men are going to do and say when they stand on the stage. Now, what do you expect from Joe Biden?
Well, first of all, it would take someone 5 minutes to Google Jake Tapper, Donald Trump, to see that Jake Tapper has consistently
stop this interview if you're going to keep
President
attacking
Trump
my colleagues.
Adolf Hitler.
Ma'am, I'm going to stop this interview if you continue to attack my colleagues. I would like to talk about Joe Biden and Donald Trump, who you work for.
Yes.
If you are here to speak on his behalf, I am willing to have this conversation.
I am stating facts that your colleagues have stated in the past.
Okay,
now,
I'm sorry, guys. We're going to come back out to the panel. Caroline, thank you very much for your time. You are welcome to come back at any point. She is welcome to come back and speak about Donald Trump, and Donald Trump will have equal time to Joe Biden when they both join us now at later this week in Atlanta for this.
She sounds like the moderator's about to cry. She doesn't sound like she's very upset. She's very upset. I think it speaks to what the hell's going on there? The obvious hypocrisy and thin-skinned nature of everybody fake news. That's all she does is attack people and try to set people up, gotcha questions, put people in awkward positions. You're here, but Donald Trump said that they're always trying to create a wedge between people, right? And embarrass them. And they attack all day long, all things Trump. And she didn't even mention the guy by name. She was just implying. You want to hear how biased? Should we hear the motherload of biased stuff again? Just a smidge this time. Go ahead. A smidge. Whenever you can. The little
to all corners of this country. That's why he was in Detroit.
No. The Jake Tapper stuff. The motherload of fake newsery. This is not a neutral guy. You're allowed to say things, Jake. This is politics. We have political opinions. And you are not the lawgiver and the truth maker. You're just not.
They don't.
Go ahead. Richard? Okay.
First lie was told just seconds into the night with his false familiar claim that the 2020 election was, quote, a rigged election. And the falsehoods kept coming fast and furious about the January 6th insurrection, about the threat to Vice President Pence, about Pence's ability to overturn the election, about COVID, about the economy, and more. He called a black law enforcement.
The threats to Mike. You can't say that Mike Pence wasn't threatened. What do you? That's not a. It's Jake. Take off the hat. Run as a liberal Democrat from suburban Maryland or wherever the hell you live. And the same goes for you, that bucktooth weirdo. What's her name again? Donna Bash. Let's just take this all the way through.
Officer, a thug. He said people here in Washington, D.C. at Chinatown don't speak English. He attacked Caitlyn as a nasty woman because she was trying to get him to answer a question.
Totally nasty.
Perhaps most chillingly, the day after a 9-person jury of his peers in New York found him liable for sexual battery and defamation and ordered him to pay writer E. Jean Carroll $5 million. He made fun of her account of her sexual assault.
Do not make
and
fun
many
of
in the
vagina.
audience laughed. Let me start with you, Dana. We don't have enough time to fact check every lie he told, but he started off with the election one, and boy, he really just never let that bone go.
And it's pretty clear the evidence is now out there that he is going to continue to tell that lie, not just to the audience where he has an echo chamber, conservative media, but unbiased, straight down the middle media. The people he's trying to get beyond his base.
All right, shut up for a second. Speaking of lies, CNN, more than probably anyone else, has pushed the Charlottesville lie to the point that it is ingrained. People just accept it. This is, Donald Trump called neo-Nazis very fine people. Now, that is a total lie, and Joe Biden has been, this is how much cover he gets from the fake news. He can base his entire presidency on a lie. His entire presidency. So he declares in 2019, and he actually comes out with a campaign video. That's how they do it, because he couldn't do a big speech, didn't want to do a big speech. Just makes a little campaign video in his living room, and then they throw some music on, and it's all dramatic. So I think we have that ready. And this is Joe Biden announcing his candidate. Listen to the very first word out of his mouth. A lie, Joe, is a terrible way to say hello, someone once said. Go ahead.
Charlottesville is also home to a defining moment for this nation in the last few years. It was there on August of 2017 we saw Klansmen and white supremacists and neo-Nazis come out in the open.
Biden used the Charlottesville March and the president's response to it, which Biden and many others found to be lacking, and used that as an argument to say that Donald Trump should not be president and that we're at a moment of crisis.
Excuse me, they didn't let themselves down as you, and you had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
And that's when we heard the words of the President of the United States that stunned the world and shocked the conscience of this nation. He said there were, quote, some very fine people on both sides. Very fine people on both sides?
He doesn't need to necessarily introduce himself to the country.
Stop. It was kind of a bastardized version, but even Snopes, the political fact checker, is acknowledging for the first time in 7 years. 7 years. That happened 7 years ago. When was Charlottesville? Summer of 2017. That's 7 years ago. They're finally saying that this whole notion that Donald Trump referred to neo-Nazis and white supremacists as nice people is a lie. Now, I think you have this little clip. This is actually, it's about 2 minutes long. Here's Donald Trump speaking about what happened in Charlottesville. And just so we know what happened in Charlottesville, right? They wanted to take down the Robert E. Lee statue. Robert E. Lee, the Confederate war general / wasn't he the president of the Confederacy? No, that was Jefferson Davis. Whatever. He was a Confederate general. And I think he went to West Point. It's part of our history. You can think that statue should be taken down because he was on the side of slavery or pro-slavery. You could also think it should be preserved. I think it should be preserved. That's a reason. Both positions are reasonable. Keep that in mind. All right. Now, there were people with reasonable positions. Then there were a bunch of maniacs, Antifa maniacs who showed up. And yeah, there were some neo-Nazi nut jobs as well. Things got out of hand between the group that especially did not have a permit. Let's listen to what Donald Trump really said, please.
That were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name.
Robert E. Lee are not the same.
Well, no, George Washington was a slave owner. Was George Washington a slave owner? So will George Washington now lose his status? Are we going to take down... Excuse me. Are we going to take down statues to George Washington? How about Thomas Jefferson? What do you think of Thomas Jefferson? You like him? Okay, good. Are we going to take down the statue? Because he was a major slave owner. Now we're going to take down his statue. So you know what? It's fine. You're changing history, you're changing culture, and you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay? And the press has treated them absolutely unfairly. Now, in the other group also, you had some fine people, but you also had troublemakers, and you see them come with the black outfits and with the helmets and with the baseball bats. You had a lot of bad people in the other group too.
Treated unfairly, sir. I'm sorry, I just didn't understand what you were saying. You were saying the press has treated white nationalists unfairly?
No,
I just didn't understand what you were saying.
No. There were people in that rally, and I looked the night before. If you look, there were people protesting very quietly the taking down of the statue of Robert E. Lee. I'm sure in that group there were some bad ones. The following day, it looked like they had some rough, bad people, neo-Nazis, white nationalists, whatever you want to call them. But you had a lot of people in that group that were there to innocently protest and very legally protest because, you know, I don't know if you know, they had a permit. The other group didn't have a permit. So I only tell you this. There are two sides to a story. I thought what took place was a horrible moment for our country, a horrible moment. But there are two sides to the country. Does anybody have a final? Does anybody have? You have an infrastructure.
Infrastructure. The event was about infrastructure. I remember I was actually at the gym at the Friars Club when that happened. I watched the whole thing. I'm like, yeah, good for him. Good point. And then afterwards, all hell breaks loose. Can you believe what Donald Trump just said? Yeah, I saw it. It was fine. What? What's the problem? I thought it was great. I mean, and they lied. They pretended that he said that neo-Nazis, white supremacists, they're fine. They're just expressing their opinion. He expressly condemned them. Now, here we go. The very first word out of Joe Biden's announcement for presidency. Okay, this is 2019. Joe Biden's running for president. And a lie is a very bad way to say hello. Now, please.
Charlottesville, Virginia is home to the author of one of the great documents in human history. We know it by heart. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. We've heard it so often, it's almost a cliche, but it's who we are. We haven't always lived up to these ideals. Jefferson himself didn't, but we have never before walked away from them. Charlottesville is also home to a defining moment for this nation in the last few years. It was there on August of 2017 we saw Klansmen and white supremacists and neo-Nazis come out in the open. Their crazed faces, illuminated by torches, veins bulging and bearing the fangs of racism, chanting the same anti-Semitic bile heard across Europe in the 30s. And they were met by a courageous group of Americans, and a violent clash ensued. And a brave young woman lost her life. And that's when we heard the words of the President of the United States that stunned the world and shocked the conscience of this nation. He said there were, quote, some very fine people on both sides. Very fine people on both sides? With those words, the President of the United States assigned a moral equivalence between those spreading hate and those with the courage to stand against it. And in that moment, I knew the threat to this nation was unlike any I had ever seen in my lifetime. I wrote at the time that we're in the battle for the soul of this nation. Oh, that's even more true today. We are in the battle for the soul of this nation. I believe history will look back on 4 years of this president and all he embraces as an aberrant moment in time. But if we give Donald Trump 8 years in the White House, he will forever and fundamentally alter the character of this nation, who we are, and I cannot stand by and watch that happen. The core values of this nation are standing in the world.
Shut up, you lying son of a... As you now know, not that you didn't know before, but you'd be surprised how many people don't know what you know, that the whole damn thing was a lie. It's very interesting that on the eve of the debate, a liberal fake fact-checking site 7 years later is going out of its way to say that story about Donald Trump was a false one, that he equated the two, right? Good people, neo-Nazis. It's fake. So why do they do that? I mean, 7 years later, it's okay. A few other people have acknowledged it. That's like the third big lie he can hit him with. But that is the basis of his damn presidency. And, of course, his whole presidency is fraudulent. Opening the borders, sexualizing children, endless wars, and bailing out on Israel. I can't wait till Thursday. Be right back.
Greg Kelly. This is the Greg Kelly Show.
We're going to show them who the we are. We're going to show them who the we are. Bowman.
He's going to lose tomorrow. All right, enough. Bowman. Jamal Bowman. Man, can you imagine that guy as your assistant school principal? That's what he was before he got into all this stuff, before he got into politics. He's the guy who pulled the fire alarm. So we know he's a maniac. James Flippin, hi.
Hey, what's up, Greg?
Tell me about Alvin Bragg, the crime-averse prosecutor.
So the recent decision was made by Bragg's office to drop charges.
Not so crime-averse prosecutor. Forgive me. Keep going.
Yeah, he seems, I guess, generally speaking, okay with crime. But yeah, charges were dropped on 36 of the 41 cases involving Hamilton Hall. If you think back to late April when the protesters were storming the buildings up at Columbia University's campus.
Yep.
It was a siege. It was an occupation of a building up there, property damage. Some people were intimidated, physically assaulted. And charges are being dropped in 31 of those 46 cases, 36 of the 41 cases. So they rallied outside of Bragg's office today, a group by the name of End Jew Hatred. And Mazi Pillup, the woman who ran for Congress out on Long Island, she said she demands to hold these guys accountable. She also says you got to drop the face masks while protesting.
Well, that's a nice thing that she did. Unfortunately, there's no moving this bum Alvin Bragg on these radical decisions and no media to hold him accountable either, huh? How about that? All right, be right back.
You're listening to The Greg Kelly Show.
Okay, Mark Halperin joins us, the great political journalist and explainer of all things American. He was one of the very, very few in the world who predicted Donald Trump as a real force in the 2015-2016 campaign. He's been watching him for decades. He was not surprised. Mark Halperin, thanks for being with us. How are you?
Greg, I'm delighted to be here.
Our pleasure, especially. Do me a favor. What are you hearing about the debate? Joe Biden's in hiding, and that seems very weird. Just give us a lay of the land. What are the Biden people going through right now? What are the Trump people going through?
Well, I've been trying to do the research with one hand while I'm doing the rest of my work to try to figure out if anyone's ever done debate prep this many days in a row. I don't recall anybody sequestering for, this long a period of time. And he's got a big group up there. Now, I will say this. The people preparing Joe Biden are literally the most experienced debate prep team in the history of America. They've been together, not every member, but the leaders of this group. They did it for Barack Obama. They did it for Hillary Clinton. They've done it for Joe Biden. They're super experienced, and they offer like a full range of services in terms of how you prepare. And so that's part of why I think they're doing so much. The other is obviously they think the candidate needs it. And, of all the rules that were agreed to, proposed by the Biden campaign in the main, agreed to by both CNN and the Trump campaign. The one that I think may be the most perilous for Joe Biden is standing for 90 minutes. I know you and I would have trouble standing for 90 minutes. It's like, it's not a comfortable thing to do. And so I'd urge everybody, if you're looking for Joe Biden to flag in this thing, it may happen not at the beginning when people pay the most attention, but towards the end.
What about what's your sense of the team? Dana Bash and Jake Tapper. I mean, I've been playing clips. These people are wildly partisan. Every time you say anything about the election, Jake Tapper insists that it's a lie. I just saw him come out of a town hall. He says everything that Donald Trump says is a lie. Has this been? He can't be doing that during the debate. I mean, or can he? Do you think this is like an ambush that they've got planned?
Right. So I was surprised the Trump campaign agreed to this network and these moderators, because you could have found people with less of a history of saying things that were, let's say, not pro-Trump. But they agreed to it, and now obviously they're Trump on the stump is going after the moderators, and that's standard. And at the same time, he agreed to it. My guess is, from knowing both of them, that they're not going to want to be criticized by anybody. They're going to do their best to ask hard questions of both candidates. Now, I think some of it will be in the follow-ups, right? But I think the initial slate of questions will not be what we've sometimes seen, which is totally one-sided.
They don't want to be criticized. They don't want to be criticized, my sense is, from the left base, the Twitter mob that really goes to town on them. And it's one of the reasons why they're so left now, because they don't want to be criticized by that. So I could see them cutting off mics and all that kind of crap.
Yeah. They don't want to be criticized by the left, and I think that's a higher premium for them. But I also think they don't want to be criticized by the right. And they are taking a lot of time to prepare, too, as I understand it. The only person on the stage who's not doing all that much preparation is Donald Trump, but he has never done prep. And I think, I don't know this, but my sense from the reactions I'm getting to questions is I think he is preparing a little bit more than he ever has. He's got a more organized team than he ever has. And I think you saw in the podcast interview he did last week a kind of loose, substantive, focused, funny presence that, dare I say, kind of presidential, that if Donald Trump produces, I think even Democrats would tell you it'd be hard to beat that guy in a debate if he comes through with that atmosphere and that kind of ethos.
Mark, he also seems to be right now in the zone. When you're in the zone, it doesn't really matter. You can go from challenge to challenge to challenge. This weekend was striking how busy it was all over the place. And, Joe Biden and I sometimes, like when you're in TV, if you're doing breaking news all day long, you'll go right back in the next day and you won't sweat it. I feel like Trump is at that level. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. He can take it.
Yeah.
Just take it.
I agree with you, except it's nothing quite like the format of a debate. And as we've seen, I mean, if you look at the presidential debates he did, 3 with Clinton and 2 with Biden, much different than the nomination debates he did in 2016, where he was, playing to a different kind of audience. If you look at those 5 debates, I think it's clear that the media that doesn't understand Trump's appeal, said he was a loser of all 5. But it's equally clear that he wasn't the loser of all 5. At the same time, I think even someone who respected Donald Trump, appreciated Donald Trump, even someone who worked for Donald Trump, would see plenty of moments in those debates with unforced errors. And I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if, even though, as you and I agree, he's kind of in the zone now in a lot of ways, he did that again because he can't help himself. It's one of the oddities of Donald Trump that he knows exactly what he needs to do to win this debate. He's a very skilled performer, and yet he may not actually execute it.
Wild. What about this? This is a very early debate. Now, in conservative media, some of us have been speculating that this is really an audition in a way for Joe Biden. If he crashes and burns somehow, they have it early enough where they can make a switch to another nominee, which, quite frankly, sounds plausible to me. Maybe totally wrong, but what do you think of that?
I think I'm ready to hang up on you, Greg. I've spent so much of my year on this. I say respectfully and with appreciation for your sensibilities. But no, Joe Biden believes 4 things today that he believed a week ago, a month ago, and a year ago. Number 1, he's the best candidate to beat Donald Trump. Number 2, if he decided for some reason not to run, Kamala Harris would almost certainly be the Democratic nominee. Number 3, Kamala Harris would lose to Donald Trump worse than Joe Biden. And number 4, anyone else, Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, and anyone you want to pick, the notion that they could not only topple Kamala Harris, but launch a presidential campaign in 3 weeks to get ready to run against the guy who's already built an aircraft carrier, Joe Biden thinks all those things are ridiculous. And therefore, no, he could freeze up and do his best Grandpa Simpson imitation in this debate. It will not change one iota his determination to stop Donald Trump from getting back to the White House.
All right. Well, we'll see. We will see. Hey,
oh my God! Can you imagine the humble pie I'll be eating if it turns out he gets out on Friday?
Listen,
it's not going to happen.
I am one of these people. You probably think I'm sniffing glue, but Michelle Obama is hanging around out there, and I know that's ludicrous.
She's never going to run for public office ever.
Let me ask you this: the Charlottesville lie. We call it the Charlottesville lie that Donald Trump said there were good people on both sides. Blah blah blah. Snopes, I think, over the weekend came out with a fact check. They actually said we were wrong. He was right. 7 years later, on the eve of the debate, what the hell was that all about? I mean, I welcome it, but what's going on there?
It's one of the great ironies of the left's Trump derangement syndrome that they accuse Trump of accusing people of the things that Trump does. And yet they do the stuff that they accuse Trump of doing. So you can take good people on both sides. You can take bloodbath. You can take, I want to be a dictator. These are not accurate charges. Donald Trump says lots of outrageous things. There's plenty to take issue with. But those 3 prominent examples where they just take something that Trump never said. I put the stuff, General Kelly stuff, in roughly the same category. A little bit different, but they think they can beat Donald Trump by lying about what he said. It doesn't make any sense to me, but that's what they do. And the fact that this organization, it doesn't take some like genius PhD in fact checking. Just look at the transcript or the video. He didn't say neo-Nazis were good people. He just didn't say it. In fact, he said just the opposite. And yet, from the president on down, they continue to beat this as if it's like the golden ticket back to the reelection. I don't get it. And I sort of get, but it's frustrating to me that most of the media just lets him say it over and over again. Whereas if Trump says one thing wrong, they make a federal case out of it. It's very frustrating.
Totally bizarro world, and that he can say it. It's the whole basis of his campaign, Joe Biden. The first word out of his mouth was Charlottesville. Yeah. Well, Mark Halperin, we're privileged to talk to you. Mark, you've got a lot of different content going on. I love the newsletter, markhalperin.substack.com, markhalperin.substack.com. Where else can people find you?
Well, you know what they say whenever I'm on your show, Greg? They always say there's good people on both sides. Go to walkingduck.com/Mark, walkingduck.com/Mark. And you can read about the service I offer. Not for everyone, because it's a little bit pricey, called Concierge Coverage. It comes with my newsletter and lots more. walkingduck.com/Mark.
I'm there right now. And folks, you'll be smarter than basically everybody you know, and a lot of folks in the fake news. walkingduck.com/Mark. Mark Halperin, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, man. Talk to you soon.
You bet. All right, man. Oh, man, that guy is smart. He really is. He's been around for a long time, seen it all, and and loves explaining America to Americans. It is wild. That would be interesting, though, if Michelle comes out. I still think it could happen. But he's probably right. All right, give me one moment. Be right back.
Greg Kelly. This is the Greg Kelly Show.
CNN announcing, unfortunately for America, the Supreme Court is correct to keep Trump on the ballot. Famous clip. All their panelists, including this Dana Bash. She is the worst. This could be, I mean, it's going to be riotous, quite frankly. I mean, funny. It's going to be funny if these two imbeciles. I shouldn't say imbecile because Jake Tapper is not an imbecile. He's smart. He's wrongheaded in many, many ways. I talked to him during the Trump trial. Total gentleman. And, you can find something of interest to talk to anybody about. And we had a very nice conversation. I'm not going to critique him about the stuff that he's done on air. And some of it I do find, just wildly, wildly offensive almost. But he's an interesting guy when he's not on the television. And I do believe, the criticism, I was talking to Mark about it, they are so afraid of left-wing Twitter. That's what they live for, die for. They will do anything to accommodate them. And, they all think that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. They're upset. Oh, gosh, remember CNN, how they apologized for having Trump on the town hall? They apologized. So what do they have in store this time around? It doesn't really matter. I mean, they can't kill him, right? I wouldn't eat anything or drink anything while he's there, though. I really wouldn't. All right, we are about to split. Let's see here. Rich, you're in White Plains. Hello.
Hello, Greg. A significant part of Biden's prep for this debate is going to be rehearsing these same old talking points, these lies, and Trump should say right at the outset, cut the legs off these lies now, the Charlottesville lie, the bloodbath lie, the dictator lie. And then punctuate it at the end by saying, and if all these lies are not what I'm saying they are, I'll drop out of the race tomorrow. And that ought to get the attention of every Democratic voter, no matter how uninformed or misinformed they might be.
Rich, I love it. I absolutely love it. That is a fascinating idea. I really think that could, wow. All right, let's go ahead and package your idea. I'm going to call it mine and get it to the president. No, we're going to try to put your thing into a soundbite, and maybe we'll tweet that out a little bit. But I think that would be very interesting. He's got a lot of apologizing and explaining to do. How about all the lies he told at the last debate? All right, good stuff, Rich. Phil is in New Jersey. Yes, Phil.
Hey, Greg. So you're talking about what a fool Jake Tapper is. Or not a fool, but a partisan. But to Dana Bash, her ex-husband, the father of her children, he was one of the 51 so-called intel experts.
I know. I mentioned that about an hour ago. Jeremy Bash. They were married. They're no longer married. I'm a little bit surprised. She's been married like 3 times. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But she was married to him, then John King, and some other dude. Yeah, that's a look. She's in the swamp. They're in the swamp. They can't. She's done I love you pieces. Literally, they sat down and they talked about how much they loved each other. Nancy Pelosi and Dana Bash. Don't call her Dana. It's Donna. And also, don't say anything about her husband, John King, because she gets really upset about that. So every time I tweet about her, I mention Mrs. John King, in parentheses, Dana Bash, just got promoted because her husband hooked her up. I just love kind of pushing her buttons a little bit. All right, Phil, anything else?
Yeah, I would disagree with Mark. They tell the lie often enough. There's a lot of people that believe it. I have some good friends. One, her husband was a cop, killed in the line of duty.
I don't think Mark said otherwise. I think that, you tell a lie often enough, people believe this crap. People believe the Charlottesville lie, the bloodbath. What happened with the cop friend?
Well, her husband was a cop, killed in the line of duty, and she hates all the defund the police, but she still votes Democrat. And she says, but Trump told everybody to drink bleach. I said, he never said that. Oh, yes, he did. Again, she's a smart woman, but you hear it enough times.
Yeah. And if you don't seek out the media, if you just kind of you're just kind of going along with the flow, as a lot of people do, they've got more important things to sit around and watch cable news all day long. And if you're just doing your thing, you're going to pick that up. Actually, even if you watch cable news or you just barely pay attention, you're going to pick up certain things. And that is so amplified. I remember when he talked about the bleach, he was looking, first of all, not at the camera. He was looking at a doctor, asking a question. Maybe the bleach would act as this deserves research. It wasn't go drink bleach. Yeah. As if we're supposed to talk to each other like we're children, because some loser somewhere, will overreact and misreact. And it's shockingly, it's just a corrupt moment. So thoroughly disgusting. disgusting how they speak to us, what they do. So nobody in my audience should have any doubts about feel any kind of self-esteem issues or anything like that. You guys are better than all of them. Thank you. Walker, hello.
Greg, I think that what President Trump needs to do on Thursday night is he needs to give like a 10-second answer to any question, and then take the rest of the time allotted to go over those very issues that you're talking about, the laptop, the Charlottesville lie, everything he wants to address. And if they interrupt him, they will be breaking the rules that they set up.
Well, it's interesting. I have noticed Donald Trump will do this. He will respond to the question asked. Sometimes he'll do that in a debate. They can change the topic on him. They did it in the first. I hope he watches those because they'll get him to switch gears. They've done it before. Look, we got to count. He knows what he's doing. He's going to pull it off. He's going to do it. And I every now and then I think maybe I should give him some advice. I'm not going to give him any advice. If he calls, I'll give him some advice. But what would that be? Quite frankly, you're in the zone. Just go there. If they start playing games with the microphone, call him out immediately. I would hit Joe on the lies that he said last time and the lies throughout. I mean, everybody knows it. Now just bring it home. You don't need a lot of trickery. Actually, one thing you said, Walker, you don't want to you give somebody an unusual way of speaking, like answer it in 10 seconds and then go to something else. Like Donald Trump doesn't answer questions in 10 seconds. That's not what he does. So you can't give him a new way of speaking. You can tell him to make certain points. I mean, you always want to make new points and that kind of thing. Stuff happens in the news. Be sure to talk about this. But it's a problem if you give somebody, especially in a debate environment, it's uncomfortable, right? You don't want to give somebody a brand new way of speaking. I don't think at this stage in the game. Hey, man, thanks. Who's this? Topi? What's your name?
Topi, T-O-P-I.
Are you male or female?
Female. I mean male.
Yeah, really? Your name is ambiguous, and you seem a little bit ambivalent yourself.
Hey, listen, if Trump wants to slam the lid on things, he picks Tulsi Gabbard as the VP. You know why?
Why?
I'll tell you why. Because he'll get the suburban woman, he'll get the young vote, he'll get the minority vote, and she could hold rallies.
You think it's as simple as that?
Yeah,
women. Wait. Women vote for women. Minorities vote for minorities. That's all you need.
Unfortunately,
no, I don't think it works that way. I really don't think it works that way. Tulsi Gabbard is not a crazy idea, and I don't think it's going to happen. I mean, she was a liberal Democrat. I like her on a lot of issues. I do. I haven't studied her to the hilt. I mean, let's face it, she was in Congress for 3 terms. What difference does it make? She is intriguing. She's in great shape, and she's got that aloha thing going. But I don't think it's going to be her, although it's not totally impossible. I got to get the hell out of here. There's the music. Amazing stuff. So how many hours until the debate? Tuesday, Wednesday, 72 hours plus 75 hours. And we're not going to get our hopes up.